You know, pastors, like everybody else, have problems. Many pastors, however, worry about letting their parishioners know about their problems because they're worried that if their parishioners happen to know what their problems are, why the pastors would lose the respect of their parishioners. There were 3 pastors who were very concerned about this, but they wanted to talk about their issues. So they started meeting together, and they took 2-3 weeks of meeting together to build trust in one another. And then came that fateful day when it was time to kind of confess their issues. And one pastor confessed to having a gambling problem. He actually admitted that sometimes during the sermon, he would look down at the offering table and the offering plate with the money in it, and he would fantasize about placing a bet. The second pastor confessed to a drinking problem, and he actually admitted he was so stressed out from his ministry that some nights he would literally drink himself to sleep. Third pastor sat there kind of quietly for a minute. Finally he said, "Brothers, I have a problem with gossip, and I can't wait to get out of here." It may not seem like it, but gossip is dangerous. Gossip is dangerous. It is not just a harmless habit of certain little old ladies. Quite honestly, I've seen very young and robust men be just as guilty of gossip. Gossip is dangerous. I heard about a church member with a bit of a drinking problem who stumbled out of a local tavern a bit tipsy and stumbled right into a lady from his church, a woman notorious for gossip. With slurred speech, he apologized, and then he said, "I never meant for you to see me like this." And she said, "Well, what does it matter if I see you now? The Lord sees you all the time." To which he replied, "Yeah, but the Lord's not a blabbermouth." Gossip is dangerous. Years ago, I preached a message, and the word gossip was in the text, and so I touched on it briefly. After the sermon, the man who would lead music for me while my minister of music was away pulled me aside and said to me, "Ray, keep preaching against gossip. Gossip is what split my church." Gossip is dangerous. So what is gossip? There are 2 words in the New Testament that are translated gossip. In Romans 1, Paul described what people without God are like, and he listed a whole bunch of negative characteristics. In verse 29, he said they are gossips. The word there means to whisper. It's from an old word that means to speak secretly, behind the scenes, behind people's back. The other word translated gossip is malicious gossips, found in 1 Timothy 3:3. It is the Greek word diabolos, which means slanderer or false accuser. Now, it's translated malicious gossips 3 times. It is translated devils 34 times. Now, I've heard it said that every church has gossips in it. I would argue every human organization will have gossips in it. But if every church has gossips in it, then every church has devils in it. In the Old Testament, the word for gossip is used 7 times, and it means talebearer. It describes somebody who's running around telling tales about people behind their backs. The Old Testament also refers to a person who stirs up strife or trouble among people. Now, if we were to take all of this stuff, toss it in a bag, and shake it up, and then dump it out on the table, we might come up with a functional definition like this. Gossip is the spreading of false, hurtful, or negative things about a person or people. It is the spreading of false things, lies. But it is also the spreading of true things that are negative or hurtful. Let me be very open about this. If you tell lies about someone else, that is gossip. If you criticize someone to someone else, and you haven't tried to deal with the problem, you're just trying to get that problem out there. People need to know. That's gossip. If you're angry with someone and you try to get somebody else angry at that someone, that's gossip. And friends, if you listen to any of that kind of stuff, you are guilty of gossip too. You say, wait, I didn't say anything. No. But you listen. And it does not become gossip until it's heard, until it's given an ear. Years ago, Ian Walker was the pastor of a large and influential church in East Tennessee. Like me, he married above himself. His wife, Esther, was a gifted and godly woman who served along his side. She was very integral to his ministry. I was very good friends with a deacon and a deacon's wife in that church. And one day, the deacon's wife told me this story. She said that a woman came to her one day, a woman in that church, and said, I'm just so disgusted with what we do on Wednesday nights. We divide up into small groups and pray. We pray too much. I remember saying to the deacon's wife, isn't that what you're supposed to do at prayer meeting? Well, trying to be positive, the deacon's wife said, well, you know, our pastor's wife led our small group last Wednesday night, and it was really good. Oh, that Hester, she said, she never comes to anything unless she leads it. Why, she won't even come to our Tuesday morning circle meetings. To which the deacon's wife said, oh, you know, she's been sick lately. Plus, she teaches Sunday school, goes visiting, and I think she leads a Bible study on Thursday nights. Well, she doesn't have to do it on Thursdays. That's gossip. That's gossip. And my friend was guilty of gossip. She tried to be positive, but she didn't try to stop it. Why do people do that? Why do people run around behind the scenes talking about people behind their backs? Why do people try to stir up trouble in groups? And I'll just tell you, my last church had a culture of gossip. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Why do people do that? You know, I wondered about that, and so I, years ago, did a study about gossip. And I was surprised to find that the Bible lists at least 4 reasons people gossip. The first one is hatred. Hatred. Proverbs 10:12 reads, hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all transgressions. What usually happens is a personality conflict turns to dislike, which turns to hatred. Now, I've heard Christians say, and you have to, you know, we Christians, we play great word games. I'm not worried, I'm just concerned. I'm not gossiping, it's a prayer request. I've heard Christians say, oh, I don't hate her, I just really don't like her and I really don't want to be around her. Do you know how Webster's dictionary defines hate or hatred? It is an intense dislike or an extreme aversion. In other words, if you really don't like someone and you really don't want to be around him, well, you kind of hate him. And that can provide a motive for gossip. Number 2, anger problems. The person has anger problems. Proverbs 15:18 reads, a hot-tempered man or woman stirs up strife, but the slow to anger calms a dispute. You show me somebody who is prone to gossip, and I'll show you somebody who's gotten angry and has not gotten over it. In fact, he may very well be dealing with his anger by gossiping, by talking about this person behind his or her back. Third reason for gossip, perversion. Perversion. Proverbs 16:28 reads, a perverse man spreads strife, and a slanderer separates intimate friends. Now, I used to think when I heard about somebody who was perverse or perverted, that meant he liked to look at dirty magazines. Well, folks, it's much worse than that. When the Bible says that a person is perverse or perverted, what it means is that his view of reality is upside down. What is truly evil looks like good. What is truly good looks like evil. Take that woman in East Tennessee who was on a rampage because the pastor's wife, Esther, never came to her Tuesday morning Bible studies. Limiting one's over-involvement in church is actually a good thing. Being at the church every single time the door is open, serving on multiple hundreds of committees, you're so busy at the church you don't have time for your family. Limiting over-involvement in church is a good thing. But that woman saw it as a bad thing. That's perverse. Fourth reason for gossip: worldliness. Worldliness. Remember I said in Romans 1, Paul described what people are like who choose to live without God or who choose to embrace idol worship. In verse 29, he piles up descriptives. Being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips. They are gossips. We would call such a person fleshly, carnal, spiritually immature. He or she may be a believer, but he is not becoming like Christ. When a Christian indulges in gossip, he is behaving like the world. How do we stop gossip in the church? I wrote this sermon toward the end of my tenure in my last pastorate. Those of you that have been with us a while, you know that every 2, 3, 4 years, I pop it out. About 5 weeks back, I just felt led to bring it out and rework it. The deacons and I have been very careful to keep gossip from getting a toehold in our church. And I'm very defensive about it because in my last church, we had a culture of gossip. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. How do we stop it here? How do we keep it from even getting a toehold here? Number one, always say kind things. Always say kind things. Ephesians 4:29. We all ought to memorize this. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear. Our words ought to build people up, not tear people down. And that's true whether we're talking to someone or talking about someone. Always say kind things. Number two, make things right. Make things right. If somebody hurts my feelings, or hurts the feelings of somebody I care about, and I get angry, man, the temptation is to go right out and tell somebody else, yeah, I'm so angry about what so-and-so did, and I can't believe he did this or he did that. Godly people, when they get angry, somebody hurts their feelings, they use the anger to motivate them to do the difficult thing, to go and talk to the person who hurt their feelings. A gossip gets angry and talks to everybody else. A godly person gets angry and tries to go fix the problem. And that's what Jesus said to do. In Matthew 18, verse 15, Jesus said, if your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault in private. If he listens to you, then you've won your brother. Now, I don't have it up here, but Jesus goes on to say, if he refuses to listen to you, take one or two with you, so that at the mouth of two or three witnesses every fact may be confirmed. If he refuses to them, then tell it to the church. Folks, gossips get the order out of order. They talk to everybody else first. Make it right yourself. Thirdly, refuse to listen to it. Refuse to listen. Somebody once said, gossip is like an egg. Once it's hatched, it has wings. Heard about a man who discovered that someone had been telling lies to a friend of his about himself. And he was, as you can imagine, pretty upset. So he went to the person who had been telling the lies, and he said to her, how could you tell my friend all these lies about me, all these things about me? And the person said, well, she said it was terrible to tell her the things that I told her, but to tell her anyway. Seeing Christians do that. We know instinctively we don't need to hear this. But doggone it, we got to hear it anyway. Don't listen to it. Refuse to listen to it. See, it doesn't become gossip until someone hears it. If you're in a conversation with somebody and you suddenly sniff that gossip is about to rear its ugly head, as soon as you hear what the issue's about, put a stop to it right then and say this. Say, wow, I can tell you're pretty upset about it. And there may be good reason, just cause, for that person to be upset. So you say, I tell you what, let's go right now. We'll go talk to that person. Let's make it right. And if the person says, oh, thank you, yeah, let's go, you've solved the problem. But if the person says, oh no, I could never do that, then here's what you need to do. You need to say that you don't need to talk about this anymore. Not to me, not to anybody else, because what you're doing is gossip. This will stir up trouble in the church or on the job or wherever it might be. Put a stop to it. Don't listen to it. In Titus 3, 10 and 11, Paul wrote, reject a factious man or woman. Factious, that means troublemaker. After a first and second warning, knowing that such a man or woman is perverted, oh, there's that word again, and is sinning, being self-condemned. Don't listen. And doggone it, folks, it's for your own good. It's for your own good. Gossip is a poison. Remember I told you that my last church had a culture of gossip. We had some young deacons ordained, and one of the deacons' wives, great lady, natural leader, she felt like it was her job to listen to gripes and complaints. Now, I'll just tell you, if you don't already know, some people gripe and complain as naturally as they breathe in and exhale. Okay? It's just what they do. She felt like it was her job to listen to all the griping and complaining. And then she would come to me and she'd say, oh, Pastor, people are really upset about this, or people are really angry about that. And I'd say, oh my goodness, that's actually pretty serious. Who's upset? We need to go make this right. Oh, I can't tell you. It was told to me in confidence. And this happened again and again and again. We had all these problems, and we couldn't get to the bottom of them. Some were misunderstandings, some were differences of opinion, some were personality conflict. We couldn't do a thing. I can't tell you who it is. I was told in confidence. Well, this went on 2-3 years, until finally that deacon and his wife left the church. She came and told me why they were leaving. She said, you know, I just can't take it anymore. I've heard all these complaints. Pastor, you were right. I shouldn't have listened. But I just can't stand it anymore. Gossip poisoned her heart. Proverbs 4:23 speaks to this. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. Gossip will poison your heart. Fourth thing to do to stop gossip in the church, tell the deacons or the pastor. Tell the deacons or the pastor. Somebody comes to you and has got a complaint. Maybe they're really upset, and you know what? It smacks of real. And they tell it to you in confidence. You better come tell the pastor or the deacons who it is. If somebody is prone to gossiping and goes here and complains about something, then goes there and complains about something, then goes to somebody else and complains about something. You read the definition, stirring up strife, whispering behind the scenes. You better come tell the deacons or the pastor. Because, first of all, it may be a problem that needs to be dealt with. Somebody may have hurt somebody's feelings. Somebody may be doing something that's just plain wrong and it needs to be addressed. It's up to the deacons and the pastor to step up and step in and resolve the problem. Plus, if somebody is just a gossip, and I'll just tell you what, in my last church, DuPont basically bought people out, paid off their time, gave them an early retirement. I was stunned to discover that men in their mid-50s could be the worst gossips you've ever met. They had nothing else to do with their time, so they were constantly on the phone, griping and complaining. So don't get the idea it's just little old ladies that like to gossip. That's baloney. You need to tell the pastor or the deacons. We need to step up and step in and explain. That's gossip. That's stirring up strife. If there's a problem, we'll resolve it. But the problem just may be gossip. And that's got to stop. Let me tell you, you get 40, 60, 100, 300 people together trying to do something. There are going to be differences of opinion. There are going to be personality conflicts. There are going to be hurt feelings. It's going to happen. There will be problems. That's normal. It's healthy. It's what happens. But gossip will keep us from solving the problems, especially this, I can't tell you because it was told to me in confidence business. Plus, Satan does not want this church to make a difference in Antioch. He does not want us to win people to Jesus. And he knows that he can use gossip to keep it from happening. Because if a church is mad at each other and have problems that never get resolved, then our evangelism will grind to a halt. I saw it for 10 years in my last church. That was the church of 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back. And it was usually because of problems we couldn't resolve. Because gossip got in the way. I love Proverbs 26:20, New International Version. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. You want to put out a fire? Take away the wood. You want to put out trouble in the church? Take away the gossip. Let's pray. God, I thank you that for 16 years we have been a gossip-free church. When there have been problems, we have dealt with them in a healthy, godly fashion. I'm grateful for that, Father, and I pray that will continue. There are so many people in Antioch that need Jesus. In our personal worlds, they need to see the love of Christ. I mean, Lord, Jesus said, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. By loving each other and refusing to gossip, we prove to the world that we're real. Help us to be on our guard, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. The first time I preached this sermon, and it looks The content is the same, the stories, the names have changed to protect the innocent. No, the stories have changed to keep you entertained. We had a guest, a first-time guest that Sunday morning, who didn't come back the following Sunday. One of our deacons, Brian Abston, and I went to go see her. She met us at the door. And after a couple of, little pleasantries, we told her we would love for her to come back. And she said, I'm sorry, but I've been in churches where gossip was a problem, and I just can't be in another one where it is. And Brian looked at me, and I said, oh, wait, if I told you who this was, she's not here. But I said, no. That was preventative medicine. Our church doesn't have a problem with gossip. That sermon is designed to keep that problem from arising in our church. And she said, oh, okay, and then joined about 2 weeks later. Okay. So guests, we do not have a problem with gossip here. But our determination is that we won't have a problem with gossip here. When I first came to this church, you're in for an interesting ride when the first question the pulpit committee asks you is, Brother Ray, how do you deal with conflict? And I said, how do you deal with gossip? I sat down with the deacons for the first time and I looked at the men around the table. I said, okay, guys, I want to know one thing. If somebody gossips, and I explained what gossip was, if it's your mother, if it's your sainted old grandmother, if it's your Sunday school teacher who taught you when you were in primaries, will you go with me to confront it? Because if you will not, I will not even pray about coming here. And those guys, to a man, looked me in the eye and said, yes, we will. Yes, we will. See, my last church, they wouldn't do it. I couldn't get them to do it. I wasn't going to play that game again. And praise God, we haven't had it. It all comes down to being a Christian in our hearts. It's a struggle. But it's doable because God gives us the power. Why don't you grab your song books, open to 489. Let's make this our prayer. Lord, I want to be a Christian in my heart, especially when I disagree with somebody, when someone hurts my feelings. Help me to be like Jesus in my heart. Let's stand.